Alrighty, what's my camera angle? What's my camera?
So,
I got cameras there. I got camera there, camera there, camera there, camera there. Oh, good God, we are back.
5, 4, 3 all the way. Then we got to one finger salute. We have Caffeine Controversy, the podcast.
With another episode of Caffeine Controversy, it is your host, the fluffy one, Big Lush, a.k.a. Black Mangina, the one... I'm sorry, I was trying to create nicknames. But better known as Levi, that's how the police know me. And then we have my beautiful wife, Miss Pale Ginger Pear, Butt Cheeks, the Booty Assassin, Massive Clapper, also known as Cara. How you doing there, boo-boo?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. We have a couple different topics that we had drawn up that we wanted to talk about. There's a lot of things that are in the news, or a lot of things that people just needing to massively drown out of things. But I wanted to talk about a couple different things that are near and dear to us. One of which is, I actually have it here on my trusty cellular telephone, also known as the calculator that they said I would never have. One thing I actually wanted to talk to you about is, what was your favorite 90s show, and why was it your favorite?
Full House started in the 80s and went to the 90s, right?
Yeah, because we can talk about this because we're 80s babies that were 90s kids that were 2000s adolescents and problematic people. At least I was. I don't know about you.
I did nothing.
Yeah, Christian School Guild. But what was your favorite 90s show?
I mean, the first one that comes to the top of my head is Full House.
Yep.
Like, I think I only missed one episode, the original airing, because this was back before you could, like, just rewatch or stream whenever you wanted. Like, if you did not catch it on Friday nights, you didn't catch it. Friday
night TVs was the jump off.
Yeah.
It was a jump off because, like, dead real, every single time you made sure, like, you will make it home for Friday night.
Yeah.
It was TGIF.
Yeah.
TGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank God it's Friday now.
Yeah.
If you have a Monday through Friday, I unfortunately work weekends. But TGIF was the jump off.
Yeah.
So Full House was definitely one of the goats. Why with Full House?
I think it was just different, and the first show that was like a jumping point from like just watching cartoons.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of one of the first, like, now there's so many shows for kids with real people, but there wasn't really that until the TGIF, like, lineup of Boy Meets World, Full House, Family Matters, Perfect Strangers. Like, it wasn't until those shows where they decided, like, let's gear some evening TV towards the kids, because otherwise it was Saturday mornings when you got the TV.
True.
It's not like now where there's like whole channels dedicated to kids. It was like you got it when the parents allowed you, and mostly it was Saturday morning so the parents could sleep in.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Full House was definitely one. But why Full House? Was it like a person or something like that was just like a big thing for you? Because I know Full House did the relaunch, and that wasn't the same, but it was what it was. It kind of was needed, especially like for us as like the generation of like we have technically nothing to live for, but it's one of those things where it's like, yo, like we need to bring this back. But why Full House?
I think part of it was like Stephanie was like basically my age.
Yep.
So it was like someone my age liking the stuff I liked, you know, kind of thing. And then there was like humor to it. It was wholesome enough that I was allowed to watch it.
Yep.
Because like I wasn't allowed to watch Smurfs or like some very simple things.
As you wear a Smurf shirt now.
No, this is Muppet Babies.
Oh, okay.
But a play on the show What We Do in the Shadows. So it's like Shadow Babies. No, so like I think it was a show that I was allowed to watch that I enjoyed with like a character that was like my age range. And then they brought in people like, or songs like, I remember Stephanie dancing to Motown Philly.
Yep.
And so like they brought in things that, you know.
Did Stephanie have the or was that DJ that had the poster of George Michael?
I think DJ had George Michael.
Okay, because they were sharing a room.
Yeah.
And then it moved into Stephanie.
And Michelle sharing, and DJ had her own room.
Yep, okay. Yeah, that show was good. R.I.P. Bob Saget. Mine, I had a couple that were like definitely good. Family Matters was it for me.
Yeah.
Just because one, seeing a black family like that.
Yeah.
2, like, it was also like a continuous, like, Die Hard was one of my favorite movies. So, like, I love Die Hard. And so, I mean, to see Bruce Willis as he is right now is, like, sad.
Yeah.
But Family Matters was that for me. I loved Urkel. I loved Urkel because I was the nerdy kid growing up with the thick glasses. I was supposed to wear my glasses just for reading, but like I was always called to reading because my teachers were my bullies and I had a big stuttering problem. And so I would always have my glasses on. And for some reason, my mom would always dress me in like corduroys and sweaters. And I had a high top face. So I was for sure Fat Albert, like, and all that other stuff.
And there's that picture right
Where's it at?
up on the shelf right there.
Yeah, right there. That's my going to church vest, right?
Vests were big for some reason.
Vests were huge in the 90s.
I had several.
Vest with like the stone-washed jeans and then the shirt and the jacket. No, the shirt that you couldn't put a tie on. Like the short collar and stuff like that. It was like really popular in like 1995.
The mock turtleneck thing.
Yes, because I remember like Will Smith and Bad Boys, he had that when he like that was like the thing.
Yeah.
And then, but I was fat, so I really couldn't do much with that because it just my double chin just rolled over it, so it just looked like a busted can of biscuits on a neck.
Yeah.
So and
I hated turtlenecks.
Yeah, I couldn't really.
I was too hot and claustrophobic.
It was so problematic, like how I was dressing. But at the end of the day, it was like Kmart was the jump off.
Oh yeah.
I lived in that husky section.
Yeah.
So like I understood the assignment. Fat boy in the back. Like you have to. This is where you was. You know what I mean? And so, but I loved Family Matters. I loved Urkel. It was definitely one of the times like rushing home for TGIF. Another one that I liked, despite the fact that I think there's. The dude that got in a crap ton of trouble for it was Step by Step.
Oh, yeah.
Step by Step I liked. What was it? Corey or something like that? Or his name was like, he was an actual black belt or something like that. He's got in trouble for like, he's done something.
Yeah, I don't think his name was Corey.
Yeah. But yeah, like he was huge onto that scene. But that was like my favorite 90s show and stuff like that. I actually goes into my second topic that I actually wanted to talk about. What was your biggest 90s crush? Not 2000s, 90s crush.
Yeah, hands down, Zack Morris, Mark Paul Gosselaar. He was the first poster I ever hung up on my...
So then why was that not part of your 90s show?
Because the first show that came to mind was Full House.
Yeah.
Like, I watched Saved by the Bell and loved it, but I feel like I caught it... not as steadily as Full House. Like Full House, the whole family would sit and watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Zack Morris, hands down, was my like first crush, first poster on the wall. I remember I was like 12 or 13 and had gotten a Dalmatian and he shredded the poster that was on my door because he was mad he was like locked out of the room. But yeah. Zack Morris, who I met a few years ago.
What was that like?
It was so weird to like hear his voice like say my name and talk to me because it didn't go together.
Did it go because you've imagined it so many times when you were growing up?
I never really imagined meeting him. So it was just weird to like have that like moment, and I was surprised that there wasn't that many people at his booth at the time I went, because I literally went to Steel City Con just to meet him that day. He was super like friendly and personable, and like we chatted. I had given him one of like my PGP stickers, and we like chatted about stuff going on because it was right before my first surgery. Everybody that was like there to see him was in some kind of Saved by the Bell gear. Like this one guy was like full on dressed like Zach. It was a little bit weird.
Yeah, that sounds like a stalker.
Yeah.
Which isn't that his role in his new show now? Or was one of the shows? Yeah.
Yeah. So when I went up to him, I said, like, of course I loved Zach growing up. I said, but my favorite show was Pitch. Like, of your shows was Pitch. And I was like, in my mind, they end up together because the show got abruptly canceled on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And he wasn't looking at the time. He was like signing, and he like spins. And he was like, me too. He was like, and then I was like, a really old throwback of yours that I watched over and over for a while was like The Princess and the Marine, and he burst out laughing because this was like a Lifetime made-for-TV movie.
You're a fan.
Yeah, I was. He was like around at the time, and The Princess and the Marine was like big for me because it came out my senior year, and my like actual high school crush was leaving for the Marines, and so it was like. I
mean, for me, it was weird. Like the 90s was definitely weird in terms of crushes because like I didn't really have a crush per se. Like, what was the curly haired girl that was on Saved by the Bell that was saying how bad caffeine was?
Jessie.
I liked her. Berkeley. I liked her. I think she was good. The girl who played Lisa Turtle was good. I mean, I grew up watching Ninja Turtles, so April. From the first one. I don't know why, but she had red hair, and I guess, yeah, that was a thing that I didn't know was a thing for me. I really didn't think much about crushes until, like, I would say, like, 98, which for me was, like, heavy into wrestling. Like, Trish Stratus and Lita. Like they were like my crushes. Lita because like one, like I don't know, I like aggressive bitchy women. I do. Okay. I do. Like I like women that take charge, but like I hate being told what to do, so I like that banter. Yeah. Because it's a constant not fight, but I like to debate. Yes. I love to debate. So I feel like that's why it's always good for me with that. Trish Stratus was just like big boobs and a nice ass. Like there was nothing else that
I mean, as a teenager, that's all you're really looking for.
Yeah, because like that's all I was really like. I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? It was the first time I've seen like somebody with like boobs up to their neck, and then I learned about what implants were, and I was like, oh, this is what they do. They put this stuff in them, and it makes them look great. Why can't somebody take the fat away from me? But I was like, that was like my thing. I love them. I would actually, if I fangirled out, like if I went to like our actual WrestleMania, if I fangirled out, it would be for Triple H, just because like he's still the background on my phone to this day.
Yeah.
Lita,
not your wife.
No. To me, it's always brought bad luck, so I never will do it. Trish Stratus, Lita, Molly Holly as a wrestler, Lisa Turtle. Alicia Silverstone. I was gonna say Stacey Dash because I couldn't think of her name, but I was like I knew someone from Clueless lost their mind. I love the movie Clueless. Alicia Silverstone, had a crush on her.
She still looks really good.
I know, right? I know. I saw her in Beauty Shop, like that was a good role for her. That was a really good role for her. I had like a massive crush on her, and it was like I was like, ooh, this is nice. She's got like nothing physically, like I don't want to say nothing, like she's cute in the face, but like you know, like ass as flat as CD cases, never really see like much of like boobs or anything like that, but just like how she carried herself, confidence wise, is like that's the thing. Confidence is the most sexy thing that I think you can really find on somebody, because like a lot of men sometimes, like when they step out is because their woman has literally no confidence and they know they can get away with it. Like for me, I like confidence. Like I think confidence and like having that confidence in yourself and not putting yourself down is huge. Yeah. So like seeing somebody who really physically isn't the quote unquote like norm, like that, but still has that confidence, that's attractive. And I was always attracted to that. Who's someone that you hated in the 90s that you still dislike to this day, and you can't say your parents, even though both of them are dead?
Yeah, and it only would have been my dad.
Yeah.
I felt that Joey Lawrence was overrated. I don't think he's a bad person.
He has a podcast with his brothers. Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
I like them now, but like
not a bad person, but overrated in the 90s. So let's change the question then. Who is so let's go into overrated. So Joey Lawrence is overrated in your opinion for your 90s.
Even though everywhere. So like it was just like
oversaturation.
Yeah, it was like just this is who you should like. This is who, like there was like it was
Joey Lawrence was that dude though.
I think I also didn't like that he was played as such a bimbo.
Yeah, he was the male bimbo. He is very smart.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I recently saw, like, a podcast thing with him where he was like, I forget who he compared himself to, or they compared him to. Oh, I think it was actually Joey from Friends, like, later on. That he was like...
And Matt LeBlanc. And Matt LeBlanc's the one with the Emmys and the Oscars and things like that. And all he's doing is the Joey Lawrence from, like, the 90s.
Yeah.
Which is facts.
And he was like, but I was wrote up as, like, the himbo and, like, all this stuff. And he was like, but then this comes around and he's, like, awarded for it. Mm-hmm. And, like, I very much, like, feel that. And I feel like... Because, I mean, there's a lot of, like, cheesy Christmas movies with Joey Lawrence that I love now.
Yeah.
But, like... I think in the show, I didn't really like the show Blossom.
I did.
And so, like, I feel like the combination of him and Six, to me, like, on the show, both of them annoyed me. And I was just like, nope. I just...
See, I watched the show for... I loved Blossom. I did not like Blossom for Blossom. I liked it for Joey Lawrence and the girl that plays Six, who was on the Parkers, who had a dunk. She had a dunk, bro. Like, it was so that's why I liked it. But that's like also, so Six would have been one of my crushes. Yeah, she was thick with a capital Th. So like that was like look, end of the day, like, I like thick women. I've always liked thick women, right? Thicker the better. If I don't have the fear of dying, possibly not thick enough.
Okay. Another one that I felt was overrated was Mario Lopez, AC Slater.
That I was going to be mine.
And
him and Screech are mine.
Oh yeah. Dustin Diamond was at Steel City Con right beside Zach, and this was shortly before he passed, and he didn't look well.
Yeah.
But he was also like an asshole, like,
so
at Steel City Con.
Yeah,
like, I'm
one of those people where I don't give a shit if you die and you're an asshole. Even if you die of something that's traumatic, I'm not gonna say God rest his soul. No, fuck you.
Yeah.
If you don't give a fuck about how you treated people in life, then why should I treat you good in death? Like, you literally, like, I hate when people do that. Like, they're like, oh, you know, God bless his soul. Like, no, this is a dude that didn't pay you child support. This is a dude that didn't be there for his kids. Like, this is a dude that didn't have any type of gumption. This is a dude that, what are you eating, Troop?
Probably a Cheerio.
Oh my God. So for those who don't know, we have a fat cat. He's not thick in nuggets, but he's Mr. Snack Back. We don't want to call him Big Back, but he's Snack Backs. You know what I mean? Troop, you want to get up here and make a cameo? Big Troops. Come on, Arthritis. Come on. There we go. We got thick in nuggets over here. But no, if you're a piece of crap in life, I'm not going to glorify you in death just because you're dead. 6 feet doesn't make you a good person.
Yeah, I agree. I've never understood the, like, all of a sudden, like, the good memories or the, like, you know, like, no.
No, like, you a piece of crap.
You had one good moment in 5 years with this person. Like, that's
like, I'm not going to say the analogy, but I'll say it off air. But, like, that's like somebody looking at, like, somebody who created, who is a mass murderer and be like, you know what? But look at how well he planned. Like, you like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't, there's no explanation for that. Like, I have no respect for you whatsoever.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you, little Big Back Snack Pack, a little chunkser. You and your butt cheeks are in my shot. No, like, I got no respect for you for that. But, like, Screech, overrated to me. AC Slater and Mario Lopez, despite the fact that he's parlayed himself into having a pretty decent career, overrated to me.
Yeah.
Another person, Stamos.
Oh.
I Stamos was that show and that was it. But then he did a lot of made for TV Lifetime movies to keep himself relevant, and then, like, I just couldn't get with him. I really didn't care about Uncle Jesse. Remember, it was a big deal when he cut his hair.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I cut my hair every day. Fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, you just went from, like, one, you just got cut your hairs because, like, you needed to get hair plugs because you were going bald. Remember when people were getting hair plugs and they were, like, distractingly bad? They just looked like a shag carpet that was in the wash for too long.
Yeah.
Like, you just no. You know what I mean? Oh, look at you, you angry bastard. But like, no. I John Stamos didn't do it for me. Doug Coulier was another one.
Dave Coulier.
Well, yeah, whatever. And then but no, I like it, yeah, they were a little bit overrated to me. Great in the shows that they were at. Yeah. But I feel like Coulier made more of an effect on Alanis Morissette's career than his own. She had that one album, and then she got happy, and then she was sad, and then it was just horrible.
Yeah.
It's like you literally see, like, I look at it like this. If Amy Winehouse would have got sober, how bad would the music have been?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's an RIP.
Yeah.
That's part of that tragic 27. Because so many people died at 27. That's part of that tragic 27. But, like, if she would have got sober, how bad would the music have been? You know? Like, those are the ones that are just like, meh. I have no transition out of that. There's no transition, guys. There's none. This is literally flying from the butt cheeks, right? This is what I do. This is how I work.
Make sure you follow us on all platforms, you misfits. And just remember, caffeine is first. The filter is never.